aeronauts, should I cut the blue and the red wire, and renown, integrity. Thanks very much for that performance. That's fantastic. Thanks for coming, everybody. Been a proud Rossi. I'm honoured to be here launching War's exhibition on the website, being one of the highlights of the Roscommon Land Festival, I have to say. I'm glad to hear Jerry saying the kind of words he said. I think it will be a very interesting and very productive relationship for you both. Long may it last. I'd like to start with a quote from the words of another Rossi that I found on the War website, from John Waters from 1997, sorry, when he opened the 4th War exhibition, and he used the famous words, "I'm unsure what to say on this occasion." And I am. But I'm going to stick to what I know about working artists in Roscommon. I began life just around the corner here on Main Street. I lived very happily there until I was about 12. And my playground was Dolan's shop and the yard, which was pretty indescribable universe for a curious child like me. Sheds full of coal, cement, clarendon, the smell of creosote, even a bottling plant for Dolan's Guinness, 30-foot timbers, glass of all colours, and of course a shop, grocery, hardware, that sold everything that you could imagine, loose and by the pound. Not to mention the customers, and I won't. And I remember Mr. Keegan, his name was Warwick, can't remember. On Thursdays, when the town was closed in the afternoon, he would inscribe in black and red ink the names of the departed on the coffins that we sold, and then head them off on their final sad journeys. My father, as some of you will know, was a self-employed vet. He established a practice here in the 50s and ran it for 45 years. And I think between Ned and the shop, it was probably inevitable that the work ethic and the service ethic would sink into me, and eventually it did. And happily now it sustains me. And pretty much all of my working life has been in the creative sector, where I've encountered many, many artists and producers, and I've been lucky enough to work with some of them and to learn with some of them. I've been at Create, which is the National Agency for Collaborative Arts Practice, for over 20 years. And essentially we support artists making art with communities. In the broadest sense, I suppose, to keep it simple, we foster the kinds of circumstances and relationships and dialogues that facilitate exceptional art. Anyway, I'm responsible for money in governance and administration, and I know very little about art. But looking around, I can see that the art here has its roots in the people and in the rituals and in the memories of this place, and I congratulate War for letting us have this opportunity to see their work and to contemplate and enjoy their work. Working artists, Roscommon, Francis Crowe, Joe Caniff, Honor Fitzgerald, Anne Rigney, Dylan Malloy, Noel Malloy, and somewhere, I seem to remember, Patty O'Brien, started War to support each other and to bring contemporary art to Roscommon. And their achievements are evident in the website, maybe not so visible, but as Noel has said, in the increased levels of art activity across the region, and in the wider opportunities to practice and participate in the arts that there are now, and of course, as Noel says, in the infrastructure that is Roscommon Art Centre. I was talking to Philip Dilmare recently, and he was reflecting with me on the impact of the efforts of War, especially as it was an artist's initiative, and we agreed that in many ways they made it easier for others here and elsewhere that came after them. But there are other grafters, and I only mentioned a few that I've encountered, like Roscommon Arts officers, a very rare breed, Emer Levy, Philip down here himself. But we can't forget the ones that ploughed those first precarious but ultimately reliable furrows at Roscommon Art Centre. I mean, Jacinta Lynch, the artist, its first director. And on her shoulders today, we have a great visual arts curator, Linda Sheffield. And I would hope that Linda will be able to use the office that she has to have words in the ear of AIB, hopefully to create an opportunity for workspace for artists, which is still sadly lacking. I cautioned back in the day of the opportunities that would be lost if War's initial proposal for the visual arts was appropriated. Although it's a welcome and necessary development, Roscommon Art Centre does make the visual arts inaccessible, which is a pity. But my concern at the time was more that the artist's voice could be sidelined. So maybe it has been. But I did predict that Roscommon Art Centre would grow in reputation and find a place in the community. Because arts buildings do. You see, art is part of culture. It's part of what we are. It's within our DNA as humans. It's in our history. It's in our rituals. It's in our memories, our songs, our stories. It reflects our understanding of the world. It challenges our views. It voices our concerns. It illustrates and articulates our aspirations for our own lives and for those of our children. And we have to provide for the next generation and ensure its place in culture and the arts. And War does that. I think it's a curious insight into politics and begrudgery to read in the archive, the online archive, how the news of a new art centre was received in places not very far away. It was reported in Conor Keane's March 1996 piece entitled "Funding for Roscommon Art Centre, but Boyle ignored in Grant's decision." The members of War have been active locally, nationally, internationally, in their own individual projects, exhibitions, and so on. And they remain supportive of each other, which is to their great credit. In my experience, there's a great spirit of cooperation that pervades a lot of artistic and creative endeavour. And again, to quote from the War Archive, an anonymous piece this time, which is about artist-led initiatives, including War, which was mentioned. Amazing creativity, energy, stamina, reflecting the massive, though generally unacknowledged contribution artists make, both to the arts in general and to the communities in which they live. Their experiences recall the degree of persistence required in the face of adversity, bureaucracy, chronic underfunding, while also highlighting the benefits, satisfaction and achievement despite adversity. Something to reflect on. I believe we each have the equal right and the responsibility to participate in the cultural life of our communities. And there's a range of jobs to be done, and a lot of skills that are required, not just artistic. And that's something that even I, as a non-arts type, have been able to do by volunteering, in my case, as a board member, most recently with Access in Ballymun, but with others over the years, passing on skills, experience, and trying to open doors where it's possible. I think as citizens we can expect state agencies to provide and to make sure that culture and artistic production is accessible, not just through the infrastructure, which we do need. We also need money, and probably more importantly, leadership. And in many ways, in fairness to them, they do try. But I think it's by engaging that we best acknowledge and test their efforts. They should listen, especially to the artists. But they'll learn better if we're active, voicing a collective view of our concerns for ordinary culture and for the arts. And again, I have to say that for an artist, workspace is essential. There's a lot of fine banks that are empty in this town. Good, productive, functional, sensible space. artists to work in. I think it's refreshing to have such talented and occasionally subversive to deliver initiatives like Crossroads 1995.
Here, here.
Philip de Homer summed it up for me with a very witty observation. He said that at the time it became not uncommon in Roscommon to encounter in the street, or maybe on a roundabout, an artist draped in a tricolour, or even in peanut butter. And sure, if we were ready for that, we'd be ready for 20 of them. This is the first time for a while that war has exhibited as a group, marking its 25th anniversary. Congratulations. It's envisaged that war will continue to exhibit as a group, hopefully frequently into the future. Please do. We need you, and they need us. Dempna pointed out in the 1990s, again taken from the archive, and strangely reported as controversial, that professional artists rely on and deserve our support. Indeed they do. This exhibition will only run until the 1st of May. The website will be there in perpetuity. And it's a great record of the history, stories and people behind the war. I commend them to you and I declare them duly launched.